We trade.
Joey's on the ball here.
On the ball.
7:30. We were actually late.
Were we?
A little bit late.
I hate it. I hate it when they say they're late.
It was a little late.
That's going to cost you.
Hey, live.
Hey, we have numbers in there.
It's been like that for a little bit.
Oh.
HR. Oh, my goodness.
Happy birthday.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Surprise.
Here we go. You ready?
Sure.
Oh, hold on. Let me turn my phone down. Oops.
Are you ready?
Oh, here he goes getting phone calls.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Okay.
Here we go.
Welcome to Creative Makers Podcast with your host, Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks, Matt with Wacky Works Workshop, Jen with Jen's Turns, Jamie with JP Woodwork, and Jake with Northside Custom Crafts.
Welcome to Creative Makers Podcast, episode 65. I'm Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks, and first of all, we need to wish Jake a happy birthday today.
Mm-hmm.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Had a great birthday. Jackie brought me Starbucks this morning.
Nice.
Good birthday.
Ooh, we got whistles and everything.
Yeah,
telling
it was
you.
good. Good. It's good to be 27. Good to be 27 again.
Down backwards a long time ago, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
A long time ago.
I'm telling you.
There's an irony somewhere in this show being about finishing.
I got that one.
Dang it, Jamie.
You're going to
All right. All right. So, might as
Hold
well
on,
try
Jimmy.
and,
Let me tell them what we're doing. Let's just not go into it.
all right.
Yeah, we're going to jump into stuff.
Jamie said if he's waiting on you, he's going backwards.
Y'all are just on it today. I better watch what I'm going to say. So welcome, everybody. Thank y'all for hanging out with us tonight. We're going to do a little bit of talking about how we finish the wood. So hopefully we can give some good answers and maybe not so good answers, but see what we do.
All right. So, as always, I've come along with my trusty notepad, as you can see. Okay. So, I've got a couple of topics that hopefully we can cover today in today's show. So, first of all, question for you guys, and obviously I'll put my input in there as well. But before we get into the types of finishes that we use and where we use them, I think the step beforehand is more important, which is the prep work. So with that being said, how do you guys prep the items you make ready for finish?
Mm.
We didn't go over this. Who's going first?
Well, oh well.
Jenny, go ahead, Jenny.
I'll
Go ahead,
jump.
Jen. Ladies first.
I'll
There
jump
you go.
in. Well, thank you. If I haven't been doing as much woodwork lately, but even with laser work, woodwork charcuterie boards with resin when I was doing those, the sanding is the last step of the prep work for me before putting that final finish on, making sure that all that wood grain is laid down, whether you give it a water pop first and sand it down again. That would be my last step before putting the finish on.
I do a lot of the sanding as well, but then I actually clean everything off with denatured alcohol before I start applying any of my stains or my finishes.
Yeah.
Just so that it makes, if not, you get it in there, it gets a gritty kind of feel to the finish to it. So,
Well, even before that, sorry, Jen. Even before that, as far as like the sanding goes, it would depend on what you're finishing it with. But if I'm doing some flat work, or I make these trophy cases once a year or whatever, and it's like I'll sand it to where it's flat, but you don't see marks. Sanding marks are gone.
Yeah.
And then I'll water pop it and go back with that same grit, and then I'll just be able to go then. But it's just, as far as the sanding goes, it's, you sand it to just enough to where you're not going to see any marks. Because if you go too far, like you do on the wood turning projects, then the way I understand it is some stuff don't want to stick to it if you go too
Correct.
far.
Yeah,
So I don't want to take that risk. You know what I'm saying?
Stick to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that say you should probably stop probably after, 200, 220 and, may not go any further, because then you're just kind of like, what's the word? It's just too much, and it makes it, some stuff won't adhere as good as others. And they're telling usually that's usually what I go to is about 220, and then I stop. Unless like y'all are doing something like on a lay, y'all may differ than that. Y'all go to a lot higher, just depending on what y'all are trying to get to,
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm like Matt, is just once I do all the prep work and get everything correctly, level and whatever, then I go through the sanding process, and then I'll usually, wipe it down. And usually with denatured alcohol, that's going to make some of the fiber stuff stand up, and then you can resand again. And then if you feel it, you got a water pop,
Yeah.
you do that.
Yeah. So I'm obviously I use a lathe in my videos, and I'm going to mention it reluctantly, but I obviously use a scroll saw as well. So mine differs a little bit to you guys. So sometimes I use couleur in some of my projects. So that being said, I have to, a little bit like luthiers, where they put guitars, color on guitars and things like that. So you have to usually sand a little bit higher than 220 or even 320. Sorry, maybe even go up to 400 or even 600 grit. So you obviously, luthiers, have a good saying: if you think you've sanded, sand some more. So that's kind of where I stand if I want to apply a color or anything to any of the wood turning pieces that I do. Because if as soon as you add color, that any sort of grain tear or anything like that will show up. With regards to the scroll saw, on the other hand, depending on what blade you use, if you're using a reverse tooth blade, you're going to get a little bit of chip out. Joey, wake up. You're going to get a little you're going to get a little bit of blowout at the bottom. So you obviously want to sand it back, but the blade, like I say, will put a bit of blowout at the back. So you want to get rid of all of them fuzzies at the back. So I'll just take a Dremel and get rid of them with that before obviously flipping it over and then doing the usual sanding to 240 with that. Okay, that was a bit long-winded.
You're killing Jacob
Wow.
there.
I believe this birthday, I just proved that the maturity is here, because I left all of that alone.
Yeah, you did.
Your facial expressions did not.
No poker face. No poker face. Ooh,
He was already set up.
All right, let's get on with the next one. Okay, so with everything you make, do you have a go-to finish?
Depends on what it, yeah, of course, depending on what it is. Like all my laser stuff, I just use rattle can lacquer for the most part.
Yep.
Unless it's going to have some sort of color to it, but mostly none of it does, unless it's just for something for myself. But most of the time it's just rattle can lacquer, and then I'll usually do some sanding. If I get a lot of orange peel, then I'll sand and then try to get it as smooth as possible. I sand beforehand, but still sometimes you're going to get that orange peel, or you're going to get some of that grain to rise a little bit. So you got to sand, and then it'll help get that orange peel off and get you a smoother finish. But you got to be really careful, because when you're using that, veneer, Baltic birch or whatever, you can quickly sand through that veneer if you're not careful. So on all the other stuff, I usually tend to stick to lacquer. I'm more of a it doesn't turn it too dark, but dark enough, and I like the glossy finish. I really don't like the matte. That's just my personal preference.
Thanks.
If it's for my stuff.
He's right here, dude.
Man, come on.
Sorry.
At least you said it to my face. Yeah.
So that's where I stand on that.
I do a wide variety of different finishes, but my favorite on non-food surfaces is Halcyon. I like Halcyon a lot. I can get 4 or 5 coats done in a day, and so because it dries really fast. I see Matt took offense too over there. There's some that I try to stay away from, but like on food stuff, I use a lot of beeswax and butcher oil, and I have a mixture that I make up myself for that to do finishes on that. But when it comes down to most of my finish, I went through my whole entire thing and just kind of what I use for finishes, and Halcyon is really my go-to for most things. On the lathe, it used to be OB Shine, but I quit making that up, and I use, depending if I want it real shiny, I go with another epoxy finish. But if I don't, I use a lacquer or something like that for a finish. It just makes it pop, and it fills in any kind of imperfections.
When I was doing a lot of wood turning, my preferred finish is a CA finish with magic juice over the top, because it really shines after that. For resin, depending on what the project is, sometimes it just needs another top coat of resin, because if it's wall art, then it doesn't need to be food safe or anything like that. I've also used black diamond ceramic coating on some resin pieces, and I liked that, but you have to be careful with how you apply it. And this weekend, I also like Odie's oil for a lot of projects. But this weekend, I bought a little sample size of the Rubio monocoat. So I'm going to try that. And with that one, I was told you only have to stand up to 120. Hit it with 120 and then apply it. And so I'm looking forward to trying that one. But I'm with Joey. I mostly use spray lacquer on the laser pieces.
I'm curious on the Rubio monocoat, because that kind of like leaves it's a dew. Well, does it? I've never seen it in person, so I've been wanting to try it. I just never bought it just to see what it is. A lot of people rant and rave about it, so I'm curious to get your feedback on it.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. I haven't done it myself yet. Also, I just got the sample, but from what I've heard is if you're getting a residue afterwards still, then you're putting too much on. You're not applying it properly.
I've done it. I've only used it once, and I had a little bit of issue with a little bit of residue left on it. But then I got out a buffing wheel and I buffed it all back off, and it looked better.
I've used the Rubio once, and I was told by them when I picked it up, you really only need a very, very little bit. It goes a really long way.
So is that like a hard, when it hardens up, is that protectant, or is it still porous? Or is it like
it's a hard wax oil?
Yeah, it protects it, and it's one of the few products that also adheres to the resin. So if you're doing a charcuterie board, you can put it on the wood and the resin, and it'll adhere to both. Whereas the Odie's oil, it is an oil; it's not going to adhere to the resin portion of the board.
Yeah, and Red Leg just said that you don't have to sand very high as well. In actual fact, they recommend not to it there because it wants something to grab onto. So you just sand to 180. So,
yep,
good deal.
Hey, with my flat projects, if it's small, I use rattle can with lacquer, and then I'll just get like 320 or 400 in between coats and just barely go over it, knock the nibs off, and then go over and just do as many coats until I'm satisfied. And if it's any kind of size to it, I'll use my Harbor Freight HVLP gun and then use the just straight lacquer like that. I don't thin it. I get that question a lot. Is like, how do you thin it? How much do you thin it? It thins into the can and I spray it. That's it. I go and I do the same process on that. It dries. I go over it with 320 or 400 or whatever I have, and then do as many coats as it takes to do it. And that's just for flat work. And I think Jen said it on the like pins or handles, bottle stoppers, be a CA finish, and then magic juice, because it's fantastic. And then pretty much anything bigger than that, sand to 1,000, and then do Yorkshire grit, because mine's going to be resin. If you're just doing wood, you don't need to sand it that much, but I'll go to 1,000, do Yorkshire grit, and then do buff and wheels. And if I really want it shiny and I have some extra time, then I'll do an epoxy finish like Jen was talking about. It all just depends on what the project is and how much time you have too.
Yeah. So for me, and I'll stick to the lathe this time. I've got basically two finishes. One is straight up Danish oil or lemon oil. That's one finish which is a go-to ones. Or I have a sand to 240 or 400, depending on how wet the wood is, and then Yorkshire grit, and then a Hampshire sheen finishing wax, and that's about it. Okay. So the next question is, on the flip side to the last question, are there any finishes you try to avoid where possible?
Paint.
Paint.
Paint. That's the one thing that I do not. If I'm gonna paint, I'm gonna find the best, quickest way to do it. So that means a sprayer. That's what's gonna happen, because I cannot stand it. Anything else, I don't really have a problem. Spraying lacquer is, I find it fun. Just I was just thinking about the stuff that I've done, and I've mad scientists that stuff out there, like trying to get it thin enough to because it's pretty, it's thin, but just trying to get it to where to lay better with the sprayer. But that's what I'm painting. I can't stand it. I'm going to avoid that at all possibilities, however you want to say it.
I avoid the ones that catch on fire. So a lot of the people doing the laser art, the big wall pieces and everything, they finish their pieces with tung oil, and that could be flammable if you don't dispose of the rags properly and all of that. That scares the bejesus out of me. So I bought tung oil, and it sits over there in its pretty unopened jar, and I look at it and think, one day I'm going to get brave and use that, but I have not yet. So.
You know what I've done for the longest time, and that was even back at the old shop, and I don't know, just me just being very cautious, because I knew that stuff could, especially with the heat, spontaneous combust. I mean, there's a lot of things that'll do it. I had a 5-gallon bucket, and a lot of people, well, you need to try to reuse that rag. No, I don't. I just go throw it out there in the water. That's what I do.
I throw it in the burn barrel.
And if I didn't in the burn barrel?
Burn barrel, yeah. Helps catch it up real quick, like
starts on its own.
There you go.
But I ain't got to worry about inside my shop.
Or if I'm very if there's something, I just throw it outside on the concrete slab and just let it sit out there. But for the longest time, I've always just thrown it in a bucket of water. Ain't gonna catch on fire in there. I don't know.
I think at the beginning of doing the woodworking, I had some Danish oil, and I used it a couple times just because I thought it was easy and fast. But then I heard that those oils can spontaneously combust or whatever. So I threw it away. So maybe it'll blow up the trash can. But mineral oil on cutting boards is about all I do with any kind of oils. If not, it's going to have lacquer or some kind of finish as far as the turning goes and stuff. I stay away from the oils just because I kind of don't kind of don't get it. I don't know how, there's people that do it, plenty of people that do it. It looks beautiful and everything, but I just don't get it. I don't think it's, can't wrap my brain around it being a finish.
So I have a kind of a double one. I like it. I like the way it looks. There's some problems with it putting it on, and that's General Finishes oil base finishes. They have a bowl finish that I used to use a lot. The only problem with it is it takes you 3 days to put it on. So it's 24 hours per coat. And if you rush that, it will tell you that you rushed it. And if you put too much on, it'll tell you that too, because it'll start to have an amber kind of haze to it. And it'll have, it sleeves that kind of haze. But if you get it on correctly, it just looks beautiful. It really does. So that's probably my one that I have a whole gallon of it sitting inside my shop. I open it up and go, yep, I'm not using that.
As far as that messing it up goes, they always say you always have time the second time.
Yeah. Yeah. I played with it for a while. Go ahead.
Last year I used some walrus oil. I used the little kit I bought off of it, and that worked very well on some cutting boards. First time I ever used it. Yeah. And I went through the process and then buffed it out with the board butter after I oiled it. And man, those things came out slick. They looked beautiful. They were vibrant, really, really nice. And then I never made another cutting board. So
yeah. I like walrus oil. I used that. I still have some of it and use it every once in a while before I try the Odie's oil. But for something quick and people don't want to pay the premium for the Odie's oil, then I really like the walrus oil.
I like the walrus oil. I started making it myself, so I just quit buying it. I just made it myself. So
there you go.
There you go.
It's not hard.
Before Jamie goes to his next question, can we put Mark L's up there about the Richard Raffman? Can we put that up there and see what we think about that? Not that one, the one before. It's a longer one.
All right, let me find it.
My old birthday eyes can't see it that good.
It doesn't usually finish.
Richard Raffin doesn't usually finish past 240 because he says that if you make more shiny than that, people won't use the pieces made, and he wanted his pieces used. Yeah. I've had a lot of people say they're going to buy stuff and just put it on the shelf, and I'm like, that's not what it's for.
Yeah.
My opinion on that is, like, I go through all of this work to get it to be the finish that I want it, and I want it to be shiny so people know that it took a lot of work to do it.
Yeah.
So, like, as far as a shiny finish versus a matte Wackerle finish, the part of me I've had people go, I can't use that, like in with bowls and stuff like that. They're like, I can't use that, and I'm like, well, it's pretty though, isn't it?
Yeah. For me is the CA finish. I've just never been able to perfect it. I mean, I've tried and tried and tried and tried. I've just never been able to perfect it. I mean, I'll carry on trying, but until that day comes and I have to find another one, yeah, it's gonna stay with a CA for me at the moment. Okay, so given the choice, would you rather apply your finishes by brush, rag / paper towel, rattle can, or HVLP? Pew pew.
HVLP all day long. I love my HVLP. I will, especially with Halcyon. It sprays on so nice, and I can keep that thing completely full. Hit it, come back an hour later, I'm hitting it again. I love it.
Yeah, I've gotten two. I've finally found a good spray gun for paint, which is a Graco. It's kind of like it's a Graco handheld. I've tried Wagner's. I've tried all sorts of different brands, and that Graco one is pretty nice. Only thing is you'll go through paint quick, so you're gonna be filling it up. But if it's for small paint projects, man, that thing paints beautiful. Does a real good job, strong enough to throw water base, and that's really my go-to now for that. Now, if I'm spraying lacquer, it's the $8.99, $9.99 Harbor Freight jobber, because that after a while it goes bad. You chunk it and go buy you another one. And if you look for the sales, you can buy one get one free during the holidays, so you're stocked up. And those things, once you tune them up, they spray wonderful. You just got to get that little mixture just right, and it'll lay down. But if it's big, I'm going to spray. I will not brush unless I just absolutely have to. I just will not do it. I hate it. Even when I did this edition that I had to go back and touch up. I almost thought about not going and back in and touch up. Who's going to see it unless I put the camera on it? Good.
Hey, if they're looking that close, they're looking too close. Let me get out.
But I did it. But for the most part, then I was thinking, well, I can just tape everything up again and just throw it with the spray gun again. And then I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy talk. I just need to go back and touch it up. But yeah, brushing, no. Rolling, no. Gun all the way if I can do it.
Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Jenny.
I prefer to use a brush or a roller, and that is only because I tried using a spray gun one time with Halcyon, and it was a dismal failure. And I know it's because I don't know the technique or the ratios or anything. So it's definitely a learned skill, and it is one that I have not learned. So
it's the wrist. It's all about the wrist.
So I will brush or paint for now until I learn spray guns.
I like using a spray gun on flat work, but I have to say that when I'm doing turning, the buffing wheels are probably my favorite for bowls and things like that. Yeah. That last, you're putting wax on with that last buffing wheel, and that's what really gets it going. But that being said, you're at the very end of the process, and there's a chance you're going to shoot this thing across your shop and wreck into a wall and tear it all up. So it's rewarding, but it's also scary at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, it's going to have to be a paper towel as opposed to a rag, because we don't use rags on the lathe because it can you can end up losing your fingers. So yeah, paper towel, something that will easily tear if something should get caught on the piece that you're working on. So with that being said, on to the next question.
Hey, so what about,
hold on.
Sorry. So what about silicone wristbands and a watch and stuff? Is that safe, Jamie? Because I saw on a video of yours.
Yeah. So did somebody else, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy had him pretty good troll today. It was awesome. Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, he knows what he was talking about. He had 60 years experience.
None in manners.
So one thing we do need to mention is safety around finishes, which we've already touched on a little bit already. For example, wearing the right respirator or the correct way to dispose of rags, and even the subject of rags. What I've just mentioned right there is using them on the lathe, which I just said we shouldn't do in case it gets caught. So, disposing of rags and wearing the right respirators as examples.
Well, I saw that Mark left a comment in there. He says, I've got a chemical waste container in my shop. That's where the oily rags go. And I know that those are mostly pretty reliable. And so people that use oils and chemicals a lot will use that. I have personally seen a tire and like oil change shop that have those containers have one spontaneously combust on them. My brother worked there. So it's still, you have to keep an eye on those as well. I don't know. I think you just really have to keep an eye on everything that you're doing and, use a respirator even when you're spraying and all of that. And that's hard. Sometimes I just go outside and I'm like, it's just a quick spray. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
Not
Doesn't
smart.
Doesn't matter way the winds start blowing.
Then you're hacking up a lung later on.
Mm,
My go-to is a 3M double can respirator when I'm spraying.
mm,
Do as I say, not as I do. Sometimes I get in a hurry, and if I'm outside, I'll be throwing stuff without a respirator, and I know it's not good to do, but I'm out in the open, and I always try to position myself away so the wind's blowing it, but you can still get the fumes, which are not good for you. So wear your PPE and a respirator. If I'm in here and it's closed, I'll put it on. And even then, after throwing a lacquer finish, you got to wait a while because, man, it's pretty potent in there, especially like during the winter. You try to do it during the day when there's still a little heat so that it gives it time to dry. And there's times like when I was doing a lot of laser stuff, I would throw a finish on it and then just wait till the next day and come back because it just wouldn't dry fast enough. And that's, and then, it's proper ventilation is a good thing. But of course, a lot of us don't have that unless we raise the garage door, but that stuff's not good to be breathing in. And it's pretty
So there's
potent.
no heat in your garage?
No. Right now there's plenty of it.
I just spray lacquer and then go eat because I always get the munchies.
I have.
That's
a
not
story.
normal.
No. So I was used to spraying shellac, and shellac will fall pretty quickly. But I still used a respirator. But I was like, I'm just gonna spray this one little small piece, and it was lacquer. And it's the first time I'd ever sprayed lacquer, and I sprayed that stuff. And I turned around, and my daughter walked in, and she went, "Oh my God, it's so bad in here." Huh. That's what made me actually pull up the doors, and maybe I shouldn't do that.
I bought a whole can of shellac because of Matt rattle can, and I was like, "That's the worst junk I ever bought, Matt." I threw it away.
Stand it.
I did not like it, but it's
Leave
funny
more of a
though.
yellow
'Cause-
finish.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just
we
gonna
have-
say the same thing. My kids were. I was running the laser and I was cutting a acrylic, and I had no idea it was smelling the way it did, and because I guess I just in here, you just become nose blind to it, and my wife texted me because the vent for the laser, the way the wind was blowing, it was blowing toward the house, and she come outside and she texts me. She's like, "What are you doing in there?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh my God, it's horrible." And then when I stepped out of here and went and got some fresh air and then come back in, I was like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty stout in here." I was like, "Yeah, probably not good to be smelling this stuff."
See, and I wonder about that a lot because, like you guys know, I don't have a sense of smell.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out in the garage letting the laser do its thing. It's vented outside, but I'm like, there's still some fumes in there when you open the lid to the laser and
no, Jen,
and
there's
stuff.
a lot of fumes. There's a lot of fumes. When I do acrylic,
Yeah.
I'll leave and I'll just periodically come in here in the office and I'll look and then I walk back out because it's bad. It's real bad.
See, here's another safety thing, Joey. You're not supposed to leave the laser.
I don't. I'm out in the shop. I just come back and I check on it because it's running.
We got baby monitor on it.
Yeah. I got the camera.
Yeah.
inside of it. Yeah, that's what
Exactly.
it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. So on your
I'm
phone.
lying.
Henry Scrollstall Works says, has anyone tried to use true oil in an airbrush?
I have not.
I have an
I
don't
airbrush.
tell
I have
At
not-
all, really.
I have an airbrush. I haven't broke it out yet. It's still sitting in the box still. So I haven't tried it yet. But
The only thing I use airbrush is with the leather finish, which is what's it called? Resin, that I'll use an airbrush to put finish on leather. That's the only thing I've ever used it for. I've never tried anything else. And I don't know. I guess if it's thin enough, you probably could. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's it gonna hurt? Try it. You can always clean it up. Let us know what you find.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, you have to get a new airbrush.
Yeah, just run
There you
some
go.
thinner through it.
Yeah, there you go.
Or do
Once
some
once the thing is-
probably be worth some Googling, some search bar action.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm sure somebody's
Very
done
good.
it.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question. What factors do you consider before choosing a finish?
What's going on? What it's going to be used for. So,
Yeah.
and then the time that you have to finish it as well.
Yeah, that's
How durable
a
does
lot.
it
That's
need
a
to
big
be?
part.
Mm-hmm.
Is it,
Yeah,
is it
food
food
safe,
safe? Does it
all
need
that
to be
good.
food safe? Holy crap!
Yeah, like
Yeah.
who's gonna handle it?
Yeah.
All that
Sure.
good stuff.
Also, whether it's going to be in the sun,
Yeah.
because you may want something with a little bit of UV protectant on it. Does it fade out or turn yellow? That kind of stuff.
And that's a good point, Jen, because a lot of times, depending on what you use, it changes the characteristics of the wood. So, like if you're trying to keep it a light color, depending on what you use, will darken it up. So you got to kind of always a good practice is take a test piece and try it before you do it on the finish, right? I highly suggest that because and on anything that you spray, there's always going to be differences. Some of that stuff's going to take in certain parts of it better than the other. You just got to know how to overcome that, and it just takes time. That kind of stuff is just trial and error sometimes, and just figuring out ways to work around those things, because you will have differences, because depending on what you're spraying, the wood's going to take it better in some spots than the other, and you just got to get that fine tuned.
One of the things I learned with Halcyon is I wanted I like a satin finish. I don't like a real glossy finish. I don't like a matte finish. I like the satin finish. And so what I do is what I learned is spray the gloss for your first couple coats is what you do, and then your last probably 2 coats is what you do with your satin. And that way it gives it a better finish. It's not a hazy finish all the way through. It's a real good clean finish. And so learning that was one of the things that would, especially with a lot of flat work that I do. So for cabinets and stuff.
Well, is that Halcyon, it like recommends you doing something like that, right? I believe I've read it.
Yes.
Want you to use 2 different types, right?
Correct. Yeah, you want to, if you're going for a satin finish, you have to use 2 different types. If you're going for a gloss finish, you can just do gloss the whole way through it. But if you're going for a satin finish, you want to do your first 3 to 4 coats in your gloss, and then your last 1 or 2 coats is with your satin, and it'll give it that satin finish. So,
So are we saying Halcyon? Like house?
Halcyon. Yeah.
Yeah.
H
Is
O
it Halcyon or Halcyon? How are we spelling
It's
that?
HALCYON. Halcyon.
Ooh, I oughta
It's from
misspelled
Total Boat.
Total
I
Butt
got you.
Halcyon. Yeah. And it's actually a marine finish, so it's waterproof and all that. So, but it is a water-based finish as well.
Really?
So you can thin it with water. Yeah.
You don't need to thin it with lacquer.
No, you can thin it with water.
Water. Just add water.
Yeah.
It's
water.
hydration.
Put it in your pancakes. And it don't take a lot. I mean, I think I put I barely put any water in it just to get it to and I mixed it up. It was a nice even spray. That's why I've found a really good. It's just really easy to use, and it works great in that Harbor Freight sprayer. So, yeah,
You like it a lot.
I like
Unless
it a
you're
lot.
Jen, and then it doesn't.
You just got to get that sprayer nozzle.
She'll just get handfuls of it.
Got to have
Handfuls
that
of it,
wrist
just throw it at it.
That's what it looked like I did.
I've rolled it on and I've brushed it on, and it doesn't give me it's just not a good finish to me. You got to spray it.
Lots of light coats.
So just a little kind of a tip, Jen, if you ever wanted to try it again, is just put some water in your spray gun. Put water in there and start fine tuning your
Nozzle.
Your nozzles, and start getting that and just spray it on a board. And once you can start seeing that fan lay you're pretty dang close. It's probably going to lay it pretty close. I mean, that's the hardest part is getting that gun adjusted just right with the air pressure. Now you gotta have a regulator on it. Don't go full bore. One thing I learned many moons ago when I was spraying one of our tractors, I forgot to put I knew better. I was just in a hurry, and I plugged the gun straight into the air compressor.
120.
And at the hit of the trigger, the actual container went woof. It didn't blow up. But
you didn't have your knobs just right, Joey.
Yeah, that's the great thing about that Harbor Freight sprayer is you can buy one with a regulator and then just pop the regulator off, put it on the next one after you junk that one up, and just keep moving on. Yeah,
I hung that one in the shop as a constant reminder of that. I'm surprised. I don't know how it did not blow up. That would have been green paint all over me. Back in the day. That probably would have done
Good
pretty
story.
good.
Would have been funny.
But back then, there was kind of none of this social media stuff. So I don't know who would have.
It had been wasted.
Yeah,
Back in my day.
John Deere Green Joey.
taking my glasses off my
I kind of just want to see that now anyway.
Go ahead and read it.
That's a good one. You're quick on your feet today there.
All right. It's my age.
This is age.
All right. So, does your wood determine what finish you use?
It can. If I'm using plywood, I'm going to use something different than hardwood. So.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but I'm like with Jen. It just depends on what it is and what you're going to use it for. And I mean, plywood, it's usually getting lacquer for the most part. That's all it's going to get. I don't put anything else on it. Now, I'm still debating on that desk that I started last year. Did I finish it? I'm still debating on how I'm going to finish it. I think I've gone through 3 different things and it's still sitting there. And I still look at it every day I walk into the shop.
It's almost as bad as mustache match toasters. That's right, man. I called you out.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, but I've actually procrastinated longer on this than he did on the coasters.
Yeah,
This has been a long procrastination. So, yeah, I don't know. What do y'all got to say on that?
I would say if I have resin and wood, and I don't care if I feel the difference, then you can do whatever wax or whatever. But if I don't want to feel the difference in them for sure, then it'll be an epoxy finish, whether it's a table or a turning piece or anything like that. So that would determine my materials would determine what I wanted to do.
I think the application of what it's going to be used for has a lot to determine on what I'm going to use, what application I'm going to use. That's just.
Yeah. So for me, it all depends on whether the piece of wood has got a live edge on it or the orientation of the wood. Like if it's a massive winged bowl, for example, I don't particularly want to be trying to put a finish on there using my hands or anything like that because I'll end up with no knuckles. So it usually get an oil finish. If it's a perfectly round bowl, then it's usually, like I say, Yorkshire grit or a wax or something like that. Unless it's a big old piece of ash, then I might end up colouring it or something like that, or doing a shoshugi ban. That's kind of one of my favourite kind of finishes, or even some paints. It's a Japanese technique, Joey. I'm glad to see you watch my videos. Uh, so yeah, it's Ash is one of my favorite woods to turn. That and sycamore. So they finish really nicely. So that being said, as you now know, I use colours in my videos. Do any of you use colours or stains as part of your finishing? And if so, which do you use?
I use stains in my stuff, especially on my like cabinets, stuff like that. I'll use a lot of stains and then do a finish coat over top of it. I haven't done a lot of color. It's just something I want to get into, but I just haven't made that step yet, that leap yet.
I like to use mahogany stain.
Mahogany.
My wife hates it. I like darker stuff like that. I don't know, but she slowly pulled me over to the other side. But that back in the day, I would use a lot of that, the Minwax line. But I haven't used it in a long time. I'm kind of starting to go back to just more natural instead of trying to stain stuff like that, like that natural look. I guess, yeah, that's about it. I mean, I don't make it difficult. It's lacquer. I'm a lacquer. Simple, easy, looks good. I'm all about it.
I don't use stains and stuff on mine, but I do a lot of wood stabilizing, and I just do the straight stabilizing. And I want to do dye stabilizing to change the colors of the wood, but I have to keep up with what I'm doing now, so it's hard to set aside time to do that. But it's in the cards, but don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
Please.
I'll hit you up in your DMs asking when you're going to do it.
Please. If somebody comes in my DMs, I'm going to cuss you out. And you, Matt. I'm going to cuss them and you out.
No cussing. This
Hold on.
family friendly. show.
3, 2, 1. DM.
You probably already have one there.
Mm-hmm.
For the laser art, I do like to use color. Sometimes I like using unicorn spit for the dye, the stains, because it's really vibrant coloring. And I'll also use spray paints. Pre-spray the board, let it dry overnight, and then cut it on the laser. It works really nice.
That unicorn spit, that's like is it a gel, is it not? Like a concentrate?
It is a concentrate, yeah. And I believe that they have one that's in a gel style, but otherwise, no, it's just a.
How come when Jamie says it sounds fancy, and anybody else says it sounds like what?
It's because I put my pinky up when I say it.
Unicorn spit.
Because you had to think hard about it. It's concentrate.
All right. Well, okay, on to the next one. I think Matt's kind of covered this or a little bit already. But do you prefer a gloss, satin, or matte finish, or does it come down to the item?
Comes down to the item for me.
I like
Gloss
it shiny.
all the way. Shiny.
I like it shiny, yeah.
Shiny.
I want them to know some work. It's hard for me to sand and go through all that work and then not be shiny.
Yeah.
And I know I need to work on that and not be so short-sighted or whatever, but it's a rough life.
If it's something on the lathe, then I definitely want it shiny and pretty, no scratches or anything, and
Yeah.
all that.
I'll be the first to admit when I first started doing resin, I got lazy, and then I kind of took over after seeing Jake's sanding video. Available on the YouTubes, and I kind of fell in love with wet sanding, and it kind of once you put the work in and see the end result, it makes you feel good. So yeah, it's definitely worth the effort. So I'd never really done wet sanding before seeing that. So yeah.
Do you change your water in between grits?
Sometimes depends who's watching.
They're always watching.
They're
James.
always watching.
Always.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Okay, so next question. In the products that you make, do you have to take into consideration that your finish may sometimes need to be FDA approved?
Yeah,
Cutting boards, yeah.
that's really about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only
Spoon,
thing. I mean,
fork, stuff like that, yeah.
More importantly,
anything else that would.
so a lot of my stuff, I'm like, you better not put food on that. It's too pretty. But
Yeah.
more importantly than whether it's approved or not is know if it is or not. Like whatever product you use, you need to know if it's going to be food safe or not. So you can go ahead and tell them, hey, just put some knickknacks in this, or it's just a table setting, or you can go ahead and cut steak on this if you'd like, but please don't.
Yeah.
I just need to know what to tell them. And that's a question I
Yeah.
get more than anything is that food safe all the time? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't eat it if I were you. I'd just put stuff in it or whatever.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the rules are in the States, but I know if a product over in the UK is food safe, they need to legally put it on the product that they're selling to you. That
Yeah,
it
we
is food safe
we don't-
and certified.
We don't care that much in America like you guys do.
But we do not eat this.
This is,
Yeah.
use it at your
Do
own
not
risk.
drink.
This is for your last meal.
Warning: may contain nuts.
Oh,
Walnuts.
stop
Yeah.
it.
All right. What is one tip that you can give to ensure you get the perfect finish?
Sand between coats.
Sand overall.
And
Get a
I
good
would
sand.
suggest, yeah, even though it tells you not to, I suggest you do it. And if anything, do it on the last one and wipe it. If you're doing lacquer, what I've learned is wipe it down with, after you sand, take lacquer and wipe it down and apply. Same step. It's all I do. And I end up with the good finish. Because depending, I've had stuff where, like, if I'm spraying big things, and I always use that Watco lacquer, and I've kind of gotten it down to a science where I can get the mix just right where the gun will spray it, but every now and then it'll spit up, and don't think just by just reapplying that it's going to cover that lacquer is going to fill in that. It's not. It's just going to get worse and worse as you go through coats. So just lightly sand, wipe it off, and reapply, and you'll end up with a.
What do you sand with?
finish.
What do you sand with? What grit?
I will sand probably about 320 by hand. I don't do it with any kind of equipment. That's just by hand, and then I wipe down. And it doesn't matter. I kind of like what's the word, the Abernat type of stuff.
Yep.
And then I just go until I can get it where you can't see that orange peel anymore. And then I wipe it down. And if I wipe it down and I still see some, then I'll go over it again, because it will not go away unless you take it out. The more coats you put, the more enhanced it's going to get.
Yeah.
And that's just what I do.
So I have a question for Joey, and then I'll say my tip is sometimes less is more. So don't put too much oil. Don't overdo it. Make sure you're buffing it off completely so that you get a nice finish. And Joey, when you see that orange peel, what exactly do you mean? You mean like orange peels
if you
have that waxy finish that's peeling off?
no, if you're looking at an orange, you see how an orange has dimples in it?
Okay.
That's what orange peel is. And it
Okay.
only enhances with light. You'll really see it. If it's going to be in a dark area, maybe not. But once you start getting it and you think, I don't need to sand, or that can tells you no sanding required between coats, the more coats you put on it, the more enhanced those divots get as you build the layers. So you need to sand. You need to sand it to get them out of there.
It's not self-leveling.
Put a light to the side of it, and you'll be able to see it real easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Jake.
My
okay.
tip.
All right. Okay.
My tip is the first grit you use, spend your time on that first grit and do a good sanding job on that. And then that's going to set the tone for the rest of your sanding experience. So if you have to spend a long time on that first grit to get it how you want it and don't have any deep grooves left or whatever, because I get people more often than you would think sliding up in my DMs, showing me pictures going, what did I do wrong? It started on the first grit. They didn't have it sanded well on the first grit. And then once you get into the habit of doing it right on the first grit, the next grits only take a couple minutes. Like I turned one on the lathe a few weeks ago, and it's sanded to, not to pat myself on the back or anything, but it's sanded to perfection in maybe 10 minutes from start to finish. I don't remember how long it actually took, but it wasn't long at all. But I took my time on that first one, and then the next grit's just like I kind of go over it after that. But the tip is take your time on the first grit, and the rest of them will just kind of happen without any effort.
Mine will be the HVLP. When you're spraying with it, overlap and keep yourself a wet edge at all times. If you don't have a wet edge, you'll end up getting a line every single time. It doesn't matter. You'll have a line. So, and that's that releasing your gun after you pass completely, pulling it and start spraying before you hit the piece, so that you get a good wet edge all the way across it. And you want to overlap about 25% as you go on down, and that will give yourself a good coat going across it.
That's a good tip. Very good tip.
For me, if you happen to be using a inertia sander on the lathe, make sure that your sandpaper is cutting around in front of Joey.
You'll never hear the end of it.
I saw that coming.
You know, Jamie, now that you have a 3D printer, you can make you a die now and cut around sandpaper. Yes, you can.
I can. I'm not. I
He
can.
ain't.
Well, everyone, I kind of got one more left, so let's go with this. What is the difference between a varnish, a poly, and other clear finishes?
If this is a pop quiz, I'm gonna fail.
I failed.
Taking chemistry class.
Yeah. Polyacrylic, Matt. I don't know, Jamie. That's too in.
We were doing so good. We were doing so good, Jamie.
We sounded so good. And
That's why me and Joey use lacquer, because we don't know what all that other stuff is.
Yeah, there's some questions that I know Matt's Googling it right now, because I
don't know the difference.
Don't know quite the difference. To me, varnish.
Put them with a brush.
I knew that stuff, but I've forgot, because I don't even use varnish. Was a big thing back in the day, and polyacrylic or poly. I think polyacrylic's going to give you a harder, if I'm not mistaken, like a harder finish, a harder protection. I think. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. Anybody out in the chat know the answer to that?
Matt's almost there, dude.
I've seen people use a poly on a lot of furniture and things like that. But I've also seen people use varnish on furniture as well. So
I believe it might be more durable. Varnish is not. Oh man,
Mark Ailes out there. Come on, Mark.
Matt. Any input?
So a varnish finish is based off of more natural ingredients, where a poly is not. And so a varnish finish will be your natural ingredients like resin, alcohol, stuff like that. But it's trickier to apply compared to a poly. That's the only thing it says the difference is.
There you go.
I didn't know that. That's just something I Googled.
Thank you, Googles.
Yes.
Mhm.
I didn't know it.
The Googles.
Mm-hmm.
So
There you go.
There you go. I'm surprised Mark
All
hasn't told us. I guarantee you,
He's letting us be. He's letting us be dumb in here. He's like,
Yeah.
Just watch
That's all
this.
right. Nah.
He's Googling it.
He's all, oh, you can't hear me now, can you?
Yeah.
Alrighty,
Well, all right,
guys.
guys. So
All right.
What's everybody got going on? We don't need to go individually. Anybody want to? I used to know the answer. I don't have to go look.
I'd have to go look it up.
Mark.
Don't worry, Mark. I did.
Come on.
What do I have going on? Yesterday, Eye Candy Pigments released in their store some 20-ounce coffee mugs that I laser engraved for them. So go get your Eye Candy Pigments cups at eyecandypigments.com.
They're awesome.
They're pretty cool, if I do say so myself.
Yes, they are.
Mhm.
Yes, they are.
And I will be on Patreon with Jake and the boys this weekend. That's about it.
I am
Matching?
doing a cabinet build, kitchen build. So I'm doing all the cabinets for a kitchen until probably September. I have to have it done by the end of September, so I will be doing that, getting all the face frames, all that kind of stuff. I got lazy Susans in the corners.
I'm going to say Susan's.
Well, they're lazy, but anyways, they just lay there. They
HR.
You guys took that totally wrong. Totally wrong. But anyways, that's what I got going on. So, yeah.
Alrighty then.
Thank you, Anita.
Jamie.
Well, I've just started building a CNC. No, not really.
Have you got the bed screwed down yet? You're better off than I
Shot
am.
fired.
No, I've just got myself a 3D printer from the Bamboos Labs. So I'm going to be playing with that. So and then obviously Saturday we've got cartoons and Patreon.
Mhm.
Nice.
And just like Jamie and Jenny, we got cartoons. We're going to be giving some stuff away, and I might have a cup to show off by then. I hope, if their shipping is fast. And we're going to give away something for the Silver Ticket Club, the Jake Blank Club, and some other giveaways. And if it's going to be like normal, Andrew's been giving away $50 a week just because he bullies me. So come and show up for that.
I'm not doing anything. Pretty much got other stuff going on. Hopefully I can get in here and do some stuff. But we sure like to thank our Patreon members, Mustache Matt and Mama T. Thank y'all very much.
Mhm.
Y'all go over
Thank
there
you.
and check that out. We are going to be coming up with something to do later on in the year. We've kind of discussed about doing a giveaway. So stay tuned for that. We will put that out when we get all that wrapped up and put together. It's going to be cool. And remember to head on over to iTunes and give us a review if you would please do that. We've been kind of missing that, doing that, and I require 10 stars. I want 10
of them.
And yeah, so next week we have Mr. Doug Miller, Woodspun Round. He's going to be on the show with us, joining us. Y'all come out, hang out, ask some questions, and listen in. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight. And till then, same time, same place, same beautiful faces. We will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
That look
Thank you.
50 to you? Does that look 50?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to you.
Okay.